Welcome, everyone, to the 30-minute Midas touch from beautiful Dyersburg, Tennessee at the Herb Welsh WrestlePlex. Now, here is, pound for pound and inch for inch, the best of the best in professional wrestling today. A wrestling genius worth his weight in gold. The Golden Boy, Greg Anthony.
Welcome, one and all, to the 6th episode of the 30-minute Midas touch. I am your host, the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony, and with me as always, he's from Churchton, Tennessee, but today he's going to be the Missouri Mauler, Mark Tipton.
Well, thank you. I'm endlessly impressed by the accolades you assigned to me, but I do appreciate it, as always. And what I'd like to turn to this week is there's a subject that I would like to discuss that we want to make the subject of the 30-minute Midas touch that, quite frankly, fills me with a little bit of apprehension. What we're going to do in this forum is we want to discuss how the sausage is made, a little bit of inside baseball, whatever way you want to describe it. But I think it's right that we discuss it because we live in a world where these things are being openly discussed. And so it seems appropriate that we give a perspective or from a different point of view as to what is being discussed on the internet widely as it is. And that subject is about match structure.
And like I said, apprehension is a very good word. If anyone knows me, they know I'm Mr. Kayfabe. I don't like talking about things in such an open forum, but like you alluded to, the void gets filled. Right now, we have a lot of guys. We have a lot of guys out there talking about professional wrestling, talking about the ins and outs of professional wrestling, and in my opinion, they're not right. They're giving wrong information. So the void gets filled. Now, what does the void get filled with? I personally want it to be filled with the right information. I want to educate as many people as I can. I understand we have a lot of wrestling fans that listen to this thing, but also I understand there's a lot of wrestlers and promoters and things like that listen. So our objective here today with the match structure is to maybe give people that maybe didn't have the proper training, maybe they didn't have they don't have someone who's been around the loop and understands these things to break it down for them. Maybe we can give them a little bit of an insight into the hows and the whys. And maybe by the end of this episode, they will understand how a wrestling match is supposed to look and feel by the end of it.
Well, for my benefit, as coming from a fan perspective, so to speak, an outsider's view coming at this, there's lots of terms that I've heard thrown around as I've been around and a viewer of professional wrestling for years and years. I've heard some terminology. I've heard it, seen it on the internet, heard it in podcasts. But to me, it seems like the appropriate place for us to start the conversation is sort of a definition of terms. How do you define the components that make up a match and how you put them together?
Absolutely. Like, obviously, we'll start with babyface and heel. Obviously the babyface is your good guy and the heel is your bad guy. That story is as old as time. Every great story and probably the history of existence has an antagonist and a protagonist. And that's what professional wrestling really is. It is a live action sporting event of good versus evil. So babyface and heel is our definitions for those characters. And we're going to get into the match structure itself. The basic components for a match are very simple. It's shine, heat, comeback, finish. And that is the recipe for a good match, and it's much like the recipe for a good movie. A movie has 3 acts, and that's kind of what professional wrestling is. It has those 3 layers to it. Now, with everything we talk about here on the 30-minute Midas touch, we're talking about everything in wrestling has rules, but are there exceptions to those rules? Absolutely, but it doesn't change the rule. So is this match structure we're fixing to go over? Is this the only way to do it? Absolutely not. There's hundreds, thousands of ways to do a match in certain scenarios, but this is the meat and potatoes. 90% of matches need to follow this line, kind of thing. Everything else is spurred off of this and whatever story we're trying to tell. So, shine, heat, come back, finish.
All right, and just for a layman's analogy, if you will, when I hear you use those terms, I think of them in comparison to the way I hear just any song I hear on the radio. In any popular song, you're going to hear it's going to contain verses, choruses, a bridge, sometimes an intro. They may be arranged in different ways for different songs, and there are variations on the theme, but those basic components, those basic ingredients are standard to the songs you hear on the radio, and that's what I hear you saying about these basic elements of a wrestling match.
Yes, absolutely. Even further into your music analogy, it's not just lyric and chorus and all that kind of stuff, but it's also the same four chords, right? Like I'm not a musician, so it's what A B D C E or something like that. It's like they have the same ones for popular songs. So wrestling, like I said, wrestling's been around for 100 years, and they've polished themselves out, and we got to a point, in my opinion, in the 70s and 80s, where we had found that stride where we were the perfect combination of sport and entertainment. We weren't sports entertainment, because to me, great professional wrestling is entertaining. And when done correctly, I think professional wrestling is the greatest form of storytelling that there is. I love it more than movies, music, literature, whatever it may be. I love professional wrestling. So when we talk about these things, there's a flow to it. And like I said, the first part of that flow is the shine. Now, the shine is what we call when a babyface is getting over, or he's winning against his heel. The misconception of this is that this is 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes straight where the babyface is just kicking the heel's ass. That's not what it is. We're telling a story. We're establishing who the babyface is. We're establishing who the heel is. We are establishing that the babyface is a better professional wrestler than the heel. So no matter what the heel does, the babyface ends up on top. You understand? If the heel goes for a body slam, the babyface slides down his back, turns around, he takes the body slam. You understand? So we're always showing that the babyface is a better professional wrestler, that he is the good in the good versus evil.
Right. So I take it that during this portion of the match, what you're doing is you're establishing credibility, so to speak, in the minds of the audience. You're looking at, hey, this guy really has his stuff together. He has an advantage, and right now he's outdoing this guy. He's somebody I can believe in and get behind. Is that kind of a rough idea?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the worst thing is, as a babyface, is the people not believing in you. Because if they don't believe in you, then the match is dead in the water. You understand? So you have to have something for them to get behind. You understand? So I'm not saying you have to go out there, and we don't do this at all. You have to go out there and do all these amazing moves and things like that. I'm just saying, establish that you are a better professional wrestler than the heel. You, as a babyface, you should rarely ever throw the first strike and or punch. Your goal should be, hey, I'm in a wrestling contest, and I should be trying to wrestle. And like I said, this is one of those things where I'm sure a lot of people out there are going to go, wait a minute. I've seen Stone Cold Steve Austin, throw the first punch. Obviously, Stone Cold Steve Austin is the epitome of the exception to the rule. Everything he did was the exception to the rule. He was a babyface that hit women with chairs, and people cheered. You understand? He's the exception to the rule, but it does not change the rule. The rule is the babyface still believes that this is a sporting contest and needs to be under fair terms, and he's trying to wrestle. And the dastardly heel, in most cases, is trying to worm his way out of actual wrestling, especially when he realizes that he cannot out-wrestle the babyface. And he may try to cheat or something like that. So if I'm babyface and I'm wrestling a heel and we lock up and he knees me in the gut, right? I sell to a corner, you know what I mean? And he may come towards me and I may give him one punch for good measure, like, hey, keep it clean. But if I'm going to go right back to wrestling. He's going to knee me in the gut. He's going to come to the corner. I'm going to punch him in the face. I'm going to grab a headlock. Because as a babyface, I'm still trying to wrestle. You understand? I'm still trying to keep this clean, but at the same time, I'm not a pushover. You know, I'm not a pansy. If you want to fight, we can fight. But for right now, I'm trying to be a professional wrestler. And I'm trying to compete in this wrestling match that we've been booked in by the higher authority.
Yeah, and I like your reference to Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think I've also heard, you know, other examples came to mind was like The Undertaker. The Undertaker is a person I consider an exception to a great many rules. But for me, when I hear you say that, I'm thinking of someone who said, well, I saw Brett Favre do this on an NFL Sunday afternoon, so I think I can go out and I can do the same thing Brett Favre can. No, there's a right way to learn how to do things and an appropriate way to do things. People who excel at it the way Stone Cold Steve Austin obviously excelled at professional wrestling is not necessarily your appropriate way to learn. He is, you know, in layman's terms, a master at what he did in the art form.
Well, another Brett Favre, you kind of got me thinking again. I'm a huge basketball fan too. And one of the best players out there is Steph Curry, but he is a horrible example for younger talent because Steph Curry does things that only Steph Curry can really do. You understand? Like, he dribbles in between 3 or 4 guys and pulls up from 30 feet away for a three-pointer, and people think that's how basketball is meant to be played. You got to understand that he played basketball for, 20, 25 years. Yeah, second generation, all that kind of stuff to get to the point where he's doing that. And I don't think any coach would go, hey, go watch Steph Curry and I want you to play exactly like him. They're going to tell you, hey, go watch John Stockton and play like him, right? Because that's more of a point guard role. But Steph Curry is a guy that you don't necessarily try to emulate. He's fabulous at what he does, and like I said, he's a 2-time MVP, and he's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day and champion and all that kind of stuff. But younger talent, I coach young basketball teams here in Dyersburg, and I can't tell you how many kids they never go in the paint. They just stand out 5 feet behind the line and try to shoot threes all day. And it's like, learn how to shoot first. Learn how to shoot a free throw first. Learn how to shoot a layup first, and then we can expand your range. But don't start all the way back there, heaving it up with bad form just because you saw Steph Curry do it every time. So yeah, there's plenty of exceptions to the rule within professional wrestling. Stone Cold, Undertaker, Bruiser Brody, Abdul the Butcher. I mean, there's plenty of exceptions to the rule. But like I said, for what we're doing, Shine, Heat, Comeback, Finish is the bread and butter. It is what wrestling has been built upon for a century. And like I said, Shine is not the babyface kicking the heel's ass for 8 minutes straight. It has these what we call little stop spots where the heel will stop the babyface for a second, and then eventually the babyface will get back over on him and take back over, right? Until there's a change, until there's a switch. And that switch is what we call the heat. Now, the heat can come in many different ways. The one thing I want to tell everybody, too, is that when we talk about good versus evil, and this is going to get a little dense for a second, so just kind of follow me for a second. When the babyface is shining, this is a moral story we're telling. You understand? Like, he's the good guy, he's the hero, he's a great wrestler, that kind of thing. So the heat can come a couple different ways, but one way that I'm really fond of is when the babyface makes a moral mistake. And what I mean by that is, like when you watch Flair and Lex Luger wrestle, Luger's eating Flair's lunch. he's press slamming him here, he's clotheslining him, he's backdropping him, he's, Flair's chopping him, he's walking through his chops. It seems like Lex Luger is completely unstoppable. And every time they do this, Flair will what? He'll roll to the outside to get a breather or whatever. So he does that 3 or 4 times, and eventually Luger loses his cool and comes outside to get Flair, and what does Flair do? Flair pokes him in the eye, or hits him against the guardrail, or hits him against the post, and that starts the heat. You understand? But the heat came because the babyface, the good guy, made a moral mistake. If he would have just stayed in the ring and kept doing what he was doing, he would have won the match. But because he made a moral mistake, because he lost his cool, because he lost his temper, because he became impatient, he went outside to Flair, and that may have cost him the match.
Okay. I think I see where you're going with this. As someone who's sat and watched many matches in his time, what this brings to mind is we had the beginning. One wrestler's come out, shown his acumen as a wrestler. He has an answer or a counter for every hold. He's clearly outperforming the other. And then he makes, the kind of classic mistake you're describing. And one that came to my mind that I've seen frequently is, for instance, a guy rolls to the outside and, draws the other guy out, and you'll see a race begin around the ring. And then as the chaser, so in this case the babyface, I'll just go and use the terminology, as he follows the heel into the ring, the heel is waiting on him, catches him coming through the ropes, which is obviously a vulnerable time. When you're coming through the ropes is when anyone is in a vulnerable position, and that allows him to gain the advantage. Is that the kind of thing that creates the transition you're describing?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a good example too, because it's illegal. You understand? Because when you're in the ropes or you're under the ropes, the referee is supposed to have it, you're not supposed to have any holds, you're not supposed to touch the man, that kind of thing. So when the guy's sliding in under the ropes and the guy drops the elbow or he kicks him or whatever it may be, that can cause the heat as well. So then when we get to the heat, obviously the same thing when we're talking about the shine. The heat is not just the heel kicking the babyface's ass for X number of minutes. The heat is just this ground and pound, methodical kind of thing, to where we're showing that the babyface is trying to make a comeback. He's trying to, make his way back from this beating that he's taking. But every time he does, what does the heel do? The heel cuts him off and sends him right back down. It can be as simple as, you got to hold on. The heel has a rear chin lock on the babyface, and the babyface, starts, throwing a couple elbows to the gut, goes to hit the ropes. So as soon as he hits the ropes, the heel hits him with a back elbow. You understand? It doesn't necessarily have to be dirty, but it needs to be vicious. It needs to look like that. Now, the number one aspect of this isn't necessarily the heel being aggressive. Of course, that's vastly important, but the number one thing in a heat is for the babyface to sell. That everything offensive that the heel does to him, that he registers it and makes it seem like he's in legitimate pain and suffering. And we've talked about it before. Ricky Morton is, he's Rembrandt when it comes to this. Ricky Steamboat is another one. Brad Armstrong is another one of my favorites. When you can take that beating and the people in the front row can feel it. Look at that. Even if it's just a knee-jerk reaction of, oh, man, that's the kind of reaction you want. You want people to feel your pain, because if they feel your pain, that means they have sympathy for you and what's going on. And when you have sympathy, that's when they come on, man, get up. Come on, hey, hit him in the face. Come on, get up. Oh, you can do it. Clap, clap, clap. So, yeah, let's go, Greg. Yeah, the ultimate Tennessee chant. But, you understand what I'm saying about the heat.
I do appreciate that definition and explanation. And as I was thinking about it, obviously now in the beginning of the match, we established that our babyface is capable of winning the match and clearly has the advantage and is outperforming. Then in the second part, we say, hey, this guy that I've got behind that I believe in after the first part, well, now he's in jeopardy. He's in trouble here. The heel has him down and is really working on him, and the guy I've got behind in the early part, now he's in trouble. The other thing that comes to mind is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this portion of the match also a place for the heel to cement the dislike that he receives from the audience during this portion? Is it a good point for him to do that and try to make sure that he has an audience who clearly dislikes this man and the fact that he has the advantage in the match?
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you establish that you love someone and you hate someone in the beginning, like we're talking about, then when it comes time for the heat and your dastardly heel is punching him in the face and pulling his hair and choking him a little bit and, not really listening to the ref and being super aggressive, maybe overly aggressive than you would think in a professional wrestling contest, milking the count and things like that, trying to get every small advantage that he can. Heels have to be, they cannot have a redeemable quality. They have to be liars or cheaters or thieves or something like that for you really dislike them. These heels that walk around and do all the cool moves and then at the end of the day just cuss out a little kid in the front row and thinks that makes them heel, that's not what it's about. You understand? You just have an unredeemable quality. And going back to our movie scenario we were talking about, The Green Mile, Percy Whitmore is the greatest heel, in my opinion, in film history. Because there was nothing redeemable about that character. He was a sniveling, backstabbing, lying little, son of a bitch. You know what I mean? And I've never heard anyone ever say, man, I really want to be that guy. You know what I mean? And that's what you have to be in wrestling. You have to be the person, if you're a heel, you have to be, no one wants to like you. No one wants to be you. You understand? And the more they hate you, the more they're going to love the other guy. Right? So I think that's a huge component of what we're talking about.
All right. Well, that feeds into something that I've heard from time to time, and I'd like to inject a little terminology I've heard. And it sounds to me what you're describing is what I have come to know as the cool heel. We have the situation where a guy wants to come out and demonstrate his athletic ability and all the cool moves he can do, but in the process, he undermines his position in the match as a heel. And I want to give proper credit. I believe it was EC3 who I heard use this, and I'm sure someone has said it before, but someone asked him what made him such a good heel. This was during his time with Impact Wrestling, or TNA at the time as it may have been known. And his very simple response was, I don't do cool moves. And I thought that was incredibly simple, but it clearly got the point across about an issue that is very real in professional wrestling today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now this is something I learned from Lance Storm. I heard Lance talk about one time. If you look at moves like numbers, you understand. If a power bomb's a 10, and let's say a drop toe holds a 1. You understand? So if I'm a heel and I'm wrestling a babyface and the best thing that he can possibly do is a 7, then I'm not going to do anything higher than a 5 as a heel. You understand? Because I don't want to take anything away from him. You understand? I'm meant to be hated. He's meant to be liked. So why would I do something people are going to like? Right? If you're a bad guy and you go out there and you do all the cool moves and you say all these cool, edgy things, and why should they even hate you? I hate with a passion Kevin Owens, because he is the epitome of the nonchalant, cool heel. You understand? Like when he first came in against John Cena, it was, well, John Cena, I'm better than you. Everyone knows I'm better than you. What does it matter if we even wrestle? So if John Cena would just said, you're absolutely right. Why are we going to wrestle? If he just would have been that guy, like the match would have went and just fizzled completely out. But John ended up cutting the promo to make that match and make people want to see it, right? Same thing with Owens. He's that nonchalant. Whatever. I'm here. I'm Kevin Owens. I'm Kevin Steen. I'm Kevin Owens. I'm cool. I don't like it. I don't buy it at all. And that's kind of, when we get to the comeback and the finish portion of this, once the heel has established that he's the heel, and you've taken all, you every time you try to make your way up, you keep getting knocked back down as a babyface. Then it comes time for the comeback. It comes time for, well, we got to give these people, what they came to see, and what they came to see is the comeback. No one watched to see Rocky get knocked out. They want to see Rocky make his way to his feet or whatever it was, right? So the same thing. So basically, a comeback is exactly that. It's your time after taking that ass whooping to show the people what you're really made of. That you could take that ass whooping and still make this great fourth quarter, bottom of the ninth, comeback. And basically what you're telling people with your comeback is that everything that this heel just did to me in this heat, my comeback is equal to everything he just did to me, right? And I think that's where a lot of people get lost, because they do a comeback is supposed to be boom, 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 boom. You can't see my hands, but we're moving upwards as I do that, So what a lot of people do is they'll hit a clothesline, they'll hit another clothesline, they'll go to shoot a guy off, and then the guy will reverse, and then they'll hit the ropes and come back with a forearm. So what happens to the crowd right there is clothesline, they pop a little higher. Then in the reversal, they die out again because they're watching the reversal. And then when he hits the clothesline, they pop, but they never pop back where they should be, right? So that's why your comeback needs to be consecutive. It needs to be boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean? So people understand that you're in complete control, that heel has absolutely no offense at all in this scenario. Like, not even throwing a clothesline, not even ducking something, not even nothing. He should have absolutely nothing that resembles offense in your actual comeback. And what happens is, and what's happened over the last, I'd say, 10, 20 years is we've become fixated on the false finish, which is where you hit a move that could be a finish and it ends up being a really close 2 count. If you watch any NXT stuff or any AEW stuff, it's all about the false finishes. They'll do 10, 20 minutes of false finishes now. That's not what false finishes were meant to be. False finishes were meant to be legitimately that. It was a false finish. You legitimately believed that this move was the finish to the match, right? We don't do enough straight comeback finishes anymore to where people understand what a true false finish is. Like, there's nothing wrong with a babyface making his comeback, like we talked about, and then hitting the move 1, 2, 3, and he wins. That's how you establish people's finishers. That's how you establish babyface finishers. And people will talk about the 5 moves of doom and, oh, it's so passe. No, it works. There's a reason that it works. There's a reason Hulk would Hulk up, and he would, Lawler dropping the strap and Cena, pumping his shoes or whatever you want to talk about. I mean, there's a reason that all those things got over because, they were the classic comeback. And that's one of the things we're so sorely missing nowadays is the straight comeback finish.
Well, as you were going through that, you mentioned the name John Cena, and one of the things that sprang to my mind I wanted to mention is very quickly what you see during the comeback is a never give up attitude. That's a phrase that's associated with John Cena, who you may view as a perfect babyface in that instance. And, and I thought that was reverencing him was a good point. And then on your building action, the boom, 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 I understand what you're saying because as a member of the audience, when I see that reversal, when I see that break in the action, I think, oh no, is this another chance where my hopes are going to be dashed? I've seen the opportunity for the babyface to try to come back and been cut off time and time again. And I thought, is this going to be another one of those situations? And it kind of curbs my enthusiasm, so to speak.
Yeah, we're running close on time here, but like a lot of that kind of stuff, we could probably do another couple episodes on this kind of topic. But there's other stuff, there's other elements to it. Like there's something called 0 to hero, where someone's been getting their ass kicked in the heat the entire time, and all of a sudden they're 100% fresh, and all of a sudden they make this huge comeback. That's not how you make a comeback either. You have to gradually, you gradually build yourself back up to make that huge comeback. So, and that's all the kind of things we can probably get into on a later date, where we are running low on time again. Like I said, we'll never be exactly 30 minutes, but we're going to be in and around 30 minutes every time. I want to thank my co-hosts, none other than for today only, the Missouri Mauler, Mark Tipton. I am the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony, and this has been the 30-minute Midas Touch. Thank you, and goodbye.